call the meeting to order. Kathleen Allen.
Here.
Amy Callan.
Here.
James Bell.
Here.
Brian Chetney.
Here.
Tom Chapa.
Here.
Brandon Legault.
Here.
Samuel Tripp.
Here.
Elise Medici. If you would all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, no one has signed up to speak, so we will move, I believe, to executive session.
Yes.
Reason?
Collective bargaining.
Could I have a motion, please?
I'll move it.
I'm sorry, Sam?
Yep. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You may move to executive session. At this time, could I have a motion to adjourn from executive session?
I did it.
Kathleen, second?
Brandon.
Could I have a second? Brandon? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? May I now have a motion to return to regular session?
Yeah.
Brian, second?
I'll second.
Tom? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next on the agenda is the Board of Education. A, contract, that the Board of Education approve the contract amendments for the Executive Director of Business and Finance, Executive Directors of Secondary Education and Personnel, and Executive Director of Elementary Education and Accountability as revised and presented. May I have any discussion? Motion?
Move it.
Sam, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? At this time, we will move to the superintendent's report. Dr. Duett?
Yes.
Am I locked
Tonight,
out?
we're going to have a presentation. Tonight, we're having a presentation on ESSA. We've been having quite a bit of conversation recently, and certainly the administrators and teachers in the room know that we're moving away from No Child Left Behind, and we're moving to the Every Student Succeeds Act. And tonight, Carrie and Heidi are going to do a general presentation on ESSA, because we're going to start to be having an awful lot of conversation about ESSA as it relates to accountability, as it relates to budgeting, as it relates to all sorts of things related to student success, accountability, and achievement.
What
So-
does ESSA stand for?
Every Student Succeeds Act, and it's replacing No Child Left Behind.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want me to share them, or did you?
Oh, I'm sorry, I have them.
Okay.
Yes.
No, I can see, that's why I'm standing up. I can see it through you. I'm good.
This federal program?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
Funded? Thank you very
Go
much.
ahead, yep.
Largely.
Okay, what you're going to see tonight is we're just going to talk about the tip of the iceberg. ESSA is a federal law that is really in depth with all the markers that it has brought into it. We're just going to today talk to you very quickly about some of the important details. We're calling it the top 10. We'll go through some of the details, and then if you have questions, obviously you can ask as we go. ESSA, Every Student Succeed Act, again, it is a federal law, and it is the way the state is, the federal government is framing the fact that we need to use external measures to see what our internal actions are to help all our students succeed. It's a mechanism for equity. That's the big word that is really truly grounded in the ESSA, is equity. And you'll see that as we talk about some of the categories. So again, we're going to do it through a top 10 list in order to kind of grab your attention. I don't know if that's going to work, but we're trying to make it more engaging than how it reads. Things to know about ESSA, number 10, is that ESSA actually is from the Department of Education, the U.S. government. It is taking place of No Child Left Behind, the No Child Left Behind Act that was started under President Bush. This is started under President Obama, and it is what is tied to $1.6 billion that feeds into the state.
So number 9 is that there are multiple measures of accountability. So one of the ways ESSA helps to ensure equity is to review data across multiple measuring points, not just looking at ELA and math, which is where our previous system of accountability focused.
You can see that the multiple measures include academic achievement, which will be ELA, math, but beyond that, science and social studies. Graduation rate, which has always been measured. ELL proficiency is our English as language learners, so those are our students that are coming to us with another language. Chronic absenteeism, that is new from what was measured in NCLB. And then college, career, and civic readiness, that is something that we'll talk further on about what that encompasses, but there's a lot of things that fall under the CCCR.
And New York State really put on quite a roadshow over the last couple of years as they were developing this plan and brought in many different stakeholder groups to provide input for them to settle on these 5 measures.
Okay, one of the things to know about ESSA, number 8, is that it will be shared faculty ownership. Each building will get its own level of calculations against the multiple measures, and with their calculations, they'll also get what's called a measure of interim progress. We'll talk more about that, how the schools can prepare to increase towards a state goal.
College and career and civic readiness really provides a measure of the percent of students who leave our schools who are prepared for college, career, or participation in their local civic organizations. And all of these different categories under this one piece for the accountability provide different point values for the overall calculation that comes from this one measure. New York State established our goals within the parameters that were set by the federal government. It is based on student growth and achievement, and the state now includes, as Carrie mentioned, science and social studies as part of the academic achievement calculation.
Okay, another thing to know about ESSA is that in No Child Left Behind, we did have these performance subgroups, but what you need to know now, what has changed with ESSA versus NCLB, is that a subgroup now takes into account 2 years of 30 tests. Before it was just 30 students that made a subgroup. Now think about it. 2 years of 30 tests. So one student in 2 years could take ELA math, and say science if they're in 4th grade. So that student is bringing in those 5 tests in 2 years. So that's going to lower really the amount of students in one subgroup. Conceivably, you could have 6 kids in a subgroup that will be held accountable if they're doing grade 3 and 4 ELA, math, and science. So this is like turning up the heat.
It could be that we wouldn't have had enough students previously to create a subgroup, and now because it's based on the number of exam results, we will. So a couple things to know in number 4, bring in chronic absenteeism. Now it's still, the kindergarten is not included, which is nice because then we don't have to worry about that grade. So 1 through 12, if students miss more than 10% of the total number of school days, based on the studies that show, obviously, kids who are in school longer are doing better and achieving greater on their assessments. And this second piece, graduation rate, which is really good news for us, because while we're constantly striving to improve our 4-year rate, our 5- and 6-year rates are really solid. So now those pieces will be factored in.
Okay, number 3, incremental growth expectation. This is about our MIPS, our measure of interim progress. What we are looking at is starting in 2016-17, the state has what's called a baseline data. They determined by trying to get school districts to close gaps, by 20% by 2021, 2022. They put a measure of MIPS out for schools to reach for. So you're not trying to close that gap, 20% gap in 1 year. They're saying we're going to spread that over 5 years. And their goal is for us to close a gap for what is state expected by 2022. For example, 4-year graduation is 95% is what the state feels every school should be reaching. But if we're starting out with an 82% graduation rate, we can't close that gap in 5 years, and we're not going to get to that 95%. So they've given us a ladder to climb up and not expect us to reach that 95% and be held accountable in terms of, being written into a naughty list.
So they're like benchmark measures.
They have a
Reach
goal and
annually.
they give us time to reach it.
Exactly.
Correct.
And they give us
we have those
benchmarks.
goals? You guys
Yes, I
have
have
them?
those
So you know what
goals.
our
I
numbers
know
are
what our
for all
numbers
of these
are. Yep.
categories, our baseline, and then you
Yep.
know what we need to reach?
Yes, yeah.
Can we see what those are? I mean, not right
Yeah.
this second, but.
Yep.
The federal government still pushes a 95% participation rate, but here in New York State, the state ed department does recognize that in certain areas, in certain areas of the country, in the state, it's difficult to get to that 95% participation with the opt-out movement. As long as we are showing improvement from year to year, so when you look from 17-18 to 18-19 to 19-20, as long as we're improving in our participation, then we won't be required to create a participation improvement plan. State Ed hasn't quantified what show improvement actually means right now, but I imagine we'll get some additional data in the coming months.
So the last one, growth and progress towards goals count more than achievement. This is letting you know that within those multiple measures, that the state really values growth and progress. The MIPS are part of that growth and progress. Before, it used to be all achievement with No Child Left Behind. You got a school report card on achievement, how you did in the ELA math. Now they're giving us the MIPS. Now they're factoring in student growth scores. So they're really trying to say we value that your school district is moving kids along. All students need to be moved along, and that's the goal of the whole ESSA, is that we move students. And that's our top 10.
That's our top 10.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We learned,
We were trying to be very
we learned from that
succinct.
very first presentation, the
Yeah,
10-minute
remember when
one
it
that
was
was an
like
hour.
an hour?
Yeah.
Would there be any other items from the superintendent? Next is.
Yes, I did want to just point out one thing. We were
No, just state.
we were doing a really good job for a while of doing some recognition of students and staff over the last 2 years, and then we got wrapped up in the capital project. We got away from that quite a bit, and we're going to start doing staff and student recognition on the first board meeting of each month. And our presentations, as you know, on curriculum and instruction and other matters are on the second board meeting of the month, and those will start in February.
Next on the agenda is committee discussions. Would there be any discussions on committees tonight?
I might add something for facilities committee. We're getting very, very close to completion on the capital project at DeSoto High School. We've been walking through there each day. We're still working on glass today, Pat, right? Pat's plan is to have the main office move into their new space during Regents Week. And shortly thereafter, that we will host an open house so that the community and board and everyone can enjoy the new single point of entry system that we've created at Oswego High School and the beautiful office space that we've created. And then short thereafter, we'll start our own internal work to move our instructional technology staff into the space that's currently the Oswego High School main office. I would invite any board member that would like to go through the new main office at any time to just reach out to Pat or me, and we'd love to show it off.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. A, minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting of January 5th, 2019. B, approval of the Treasurer's Consolidated Report, Monthly Budget Status Report in the Oswego City School District, Financial Report, December 2018, Fund Balance Projection, January 2019, Monthly Transfer Report, December 2018, E, Extra Classroom Activities Fund Report, Oswego Middle School, December 2018, F, Extra Classroom Activities Fund Report, Oswego High School, December 2018, and G, Special Education Board Report, January 15, 2019. Any discussion? Could I have a motion, please?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There will be no items tonight from curriculum or finance, so I will turn it over to Dr. Sweeney for personnel.
Support staff retirement, Mary Pensero from Riley School, whereas Mary Pensero has served the students and staff of the school district for the period September 1, 2004 to the present, and has been a most responsible, conscientious, and dedicated staff member in service to the school district. Now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Board of Education of the Oswego City School District hereby acknowledge the faithful service of Ms. Pensero upon accepting her resignation for the purpose of retirement from the position of registered professional nurse effective June 30th, 2019, and we express our grateful appreciation to her.
Any discussion? Motion?
Move it.
Amy, second. Sam? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
B, professional staff recommendation, administrative intern, Stephen Bradish as an intern at the middle school from January 28th to 6/30.
Any discussion? Motion?
Move it.
Second.
Second.
Tom? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
C, professional staff recommendation, leave of absence, Laura Riley, teaching assistant at KPS, from January 28th to April 1st while she completes an internship.
Any discussion? Motion?
Move it.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
D, professional staff recommendation, regular sub, Chelsea Stein, social studies. She'll be filling in for Chad Whitney's leave of absence from January 16th to June 30th.
Any discussion? Motion? Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
E, extra compensatory recommendation for Unified Bowling head coach Christina Taylor for the 18-19 winter season.
Any discussion?
No, I just had a quick question. I know when we initiated the Unified program, that there was a grant, I believe, or something that was attached to the,
Yeah,
Part
from
of
the
the-
U.S. from the Special Olympics.
is that still in effect, or
I
is
believe
this?
they provide a portion of the money towards the youth advisor coordinator, the YAC, which is Kyle Brown. And then I believe they give a portion towards the coaching costs.
You can find out.
It's like $2,000 in contribution
Total for, or is that per program?
per program.
So per program.
But
$2,000
I think it
the
was only a
cost of-
one-year commitment, so
That's
for
what I thought.
for volleyball, I think that's done. But since bowling is new, we should be getting that for bowling.
For basketball.
Or, I'm
Yes.
sorry, basketball.
Basketball's done.
Basketball's done,
Bowling is starting.
Bowling.
bowling is
Bowling,
starting.
okay.
Well, done in relative to the fact that year one is over.
Year
We're
one
going
is
to
over.
continue
With the grant.
basketball.
So then
This
after
is
the
the
first year,
opportunity
then
of bowling.
Yes.
Yes.
So
So
you
you
have
get
to
the
do basketball
$2,000.
first,
So,
then you could add
It's an
additional.
incentive.
right, for the first time, and
Yes.
then next year,
you pay
this,
it in full.
we'll have to pay this in full,
Mhm.
as well as the others.
Mhm.
Is that your understanding, Nancy?
It is, and what it is just to offset the initial cost of getting it started. So all of the kids will have uniforms and we'll have the coaches and the advisors all set up. So then it'll just be a well-oiled machine going forward.
Could I have a motion, please?
Move it.
Tom, second? I'm sorry, I didn't get a second. Okay.
Or-
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
F, extra compensatory recommendation, spring sports for the spring high school and spring middle school as presented.
Any discussion? Motion?
Move it.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
G, support staff recommendation, Tom Frawley, claims auditor, maximum 10 hours per week as needed.
Any discussion?
I just said, I saw that the audit committee approved this first, but I was wondering why is it, did the person previously leave or?
Mike is planning to retire,
Okay.
and he gave me enough heads up so that I could find a replacement for him,
Okay.
so that there could be a transition before he actually leaves.
So this is what the transition is paying him an hourly to cover the,
No, this is actually what it is. because
That's
it's-
the rate.
That's the
what
rate.
Mike was getting.
oh,
right?
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so it's just
Flipping
somebody
it over to a
different
different
doing
person,
what Mike was
not
doing.
on top of what?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, all right,
Correct.
that was my question. Thank you.
Motion, please.
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
H, support staff recommendation, probationary, Christopher Kuhn, custodial worker at the high school, Amanda Legault, food service helper part-time at Fitchie Park, Crystal McMahon, custodian at Minetto, and Kevin White, maintenance worker at the warehouse.
Any discussion? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Seconded.
Tom? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I, support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff
A smaller for
recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney, warehouse coordinator at the warehouse.
Any discussion?
Again, similar question as the other.
I support staff recommendation, provisional, Jeff Chetney.